Welcome to the Interzone, a show about the SharePoint Intelligent Intranet. I'm Mark Cashman, and you might hear that it's just me today. My co-host Chris McNulty is out this week, and he is sorely missed. On today's episode, we're talking about SharePoint Spaces and all the spaces that you will create with SharePoint Spaces. But most importantly, we're going to go into the tech behind all the progress that we've made up to date and talk to some folks that have been working with our customers. Those people are Vidya Srinivasan, Senior Program Manager, and Bill Baer, Senior Product Manager, who are going to take us into the third dimension, dare I say the next dimension of SharePoint. That's right. We're going to go full 3D 360. We're going to don the headset truly so you don't have to. Just kidding. We want you to, but you may not have been able to do this just yet. We're going to dig deep into the 3D and the 360 side of SharePoint Spaces with our Microsoft experts in the Spaces space. Tune in, don't SharePoint Space out. You'll hear me putting on the headset, trying SharePoint Spaces for the first time, and we hope you join us at the SharePoint conference in May so you too can put on the headset and try SharePoint Spaces for the first time. We also want to give a shout out to the SharePoint Spaces team on behalf of Vidya. From PM to design to engineering to PMM, the SharePoint Spaces team adapts to the changing circumstances, and they work so well together. I'm so proud, in Vidya's words, to represent them, but would like to give them all a moment to shine on the show. And many of them will be at the SharePoint Conference North America and would love to meet with your listeners. So those are from Vidya's words out to her team. I couldn't agree with her more. The team is really wonderful, and the way that they're building this into SharePoint to make it feel like a native offering straight from SharePoint, not as a new, different offering or something that you got to go do over in the corner, but it's a really core aspect coming to SharePoint. With that, on to our conversation with Bill Baer and Vidya Srinivasan. So we are in a beautiful three-dimensional space here at the Microsoft Studios, and I am here presented with two wonderful three-dimensional beings in person with first Vidya Srinivasan, and you are here on behalf of the SharePoint engineering team in charge of SharePoint Spaces. I know you do a lot more. I'll let you fill in the blanks there. Also, just wanted to introduce, we're here with Bill Baer, who on the marketing side is helping bring Spaces to market, initially in preview stage where we're at. But Vidya, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Vidya Srinivasan. I am a Senior Program Manager in the OneDrive SharePoint organization. I am one of the founding members of SharePoint Spaces incubation effort, I would say, and It's been a fascinating journey to see this, from just an idea to something tangible and something that is generating so much excitement in the community. I've been with Microsoft for about 6 years. I was a former intern. And I've been a part of launching some very successful services in the past, including SharePoint Home, Office 365 Groups, and O365 Video, or the first version of O365 Video, which has now eventually turned out to be Stream.
It's Microsoft Stream, so that's a nice portfolio.
Yeah.
Very nice for you to be managing Spaces amongst all of that.
Thank you.
And Bill, you've got a bit of a list of a few things that you manage and do. Tell us a little bit about who is this William Baer?
Sure. Bill is about 5'9", blonde hair, hazel eyes. No. So on a day-to-day basis, Bill does a number of different things. Outside of talking in third person, I work on security and compliance, hybrid server and migration, and I also help Vidya bring SharePoint Spaces to market, and I've recently taken over this little thing we call Microsoft Search. So a few different little things on a day-to-day basis, but at some point, hopefully they all come together and coalesce, and we have kind of one cohesive thing.
I was just about to say, to get you both working together on the same thing is wonderful outside of your day jobs. Spaces is your night job, right? This is something that you do after hours when you have extra time. But it's wonderful, obviously, to see what you guys did first at the SharePoint conference to make a first disclosure, excitement about it. Adam Harmut's on stage with you to really give you the breadth of what it is. And then, certainly seeing Bill, who is known primarily as Mr. On-Premises, with an S at the end. But obviously being able to juggle multiple hats. Thank you both for being here to share and show. We're going to actually have a little bit of a tour, and we'll give you as much audio tour as we can, actually using the equipment.
Absolutely.
So I will be honest with both of you, and I hope that it's okay with you. I've never actually put on the SharePoint Spaces headset. I've done it just through the web. I've never actually done it with a heads-up display.
Well, I heard today is a wonderful day to do that.
I think so too. Let's try it.
Let's do it. What I have here is a Windows Mixed Reality headset connected to this, machine. So what I'm doing is just making sure that this area, because this is the first time we are running this device on this area, I'm just remapping this area so that it understands where are the, boundaries of the space.
Yep.
So that you don't go and hit anywhere and you're safe.
So by remapping, you're checking out the space that we're actually in the studio.
The physical
here.
Space we are in.
Yeah, the physical space.
Correct.
But it's not running spaces just yet. This is like a test program.
Correct.
Mixed reality portal
This is
program.
just the Windows Mixed Reality portal. That is correct.
Mm-hmm,
So what I am seeing in the headset right now is this beautiful cliff house, which is a part of the Windows Mixed
I
Reality
saw a
headset.
Microsoft Store bag. It looks
there you
like
go.
there's a sign, but then a whole cityscape.
Yes.
And if I look around in the studio, no city.
No city.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is launch spaces. So I have about 3 spaces set up for you.
Okay.
There's an employee training space, there's a virtual tours, and there's a holiday lineup. Which one do you want to go and check out first?
Well, I always want to be a good employee, so I think employee training. We'll start there.
Perfect.
Okay.
So just do
And you
this.
say it's okay if I've got my glasses on?
It should be okay.
Okay.
So typically every headset comes with 2 controllers, but one is enough for this demo here. So a couple of things. This is the trigger.
Okay. And if I put an egg, it'll poach the egg for me? If I surround the egg with that thing? It looks like a halo with a ton of lights and a trigger that does something.
You can buy your own and do whatever you want.
Remember, I'm a newbie in this space, not only with spaces, but with just
The
the heads-up displays in general.
So this is the control. This is the trigger.
Okay.
Okay. And then this is just the joystick.
Okay.
And this is the D-pad.
Gotcha.
Okay. So the things we would mostly use is the trigger and the D-pad.
Trigger and the D-pad.
So if you just point it, you will see a pointer
Yep.
going to different assets in the space, and you can just trigger to select that.
Yep. And the D-pad is like a trackpad for my thumb.
Exactly.
So after I put this headset on, I feel like this is going to be my first time becoming sentient. And if you hear me doing strange quotes from Terminator,
I will not
I
mind.
forewarned you. Now I see a tent. And I see a couple of bikes. If I turn my head, a couple of dots out to the right, a beautiful, looks like maybe the hills of Colorado. And then right in front of the lake is a big video, which is probably the training, right?
Right. So this is just for a company called a Contest of Outdoor Gear. And imagine that you are a sales representative. You're in charge of, making sure that your portfolio includes selling all of these items. All these days you are probably just seeing 2D videos and pictures or maybe PowerPoint presentations of, learning about them. But imagine actually being able to select the tent, move it around, go inside it, play with it.
All right, the tent has floated up and gotten bigger. And now if I move it around it,
D-pad it. D-pad it.
Okay, D-pad around.
There you go.
All right, I can see the back of the tent now. If I scroll and D-pad around, I can see the front of the tent. Let's see. Right.
Go a little bit back. You're too close to the...
Okay.
There you go. Like physically back.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right. It's got some nice zippers, and it looks like there's a bear that's sleeping inside. Is that normal? What I see in there?
Is that Bill Baer?
It's a Bill Bear. Hey, and there's actually a store right next to it called Build a Bill Bear. Love it. Okay, so the tent is still floating.
So if you trigger again, it'll go back.
Okay.
There you go.
Down it goes. Very nice.
And the next you're seeing is a video. Just imagine that this is, the ad that you made for this particular tent or, just educational video. So trigger on it.
Okay, so I'm triggering it, pointing the laser at the play button, triggering it,
And it just plays.
see 2 boys with backpacks wandering through. Nice. They look very happy. They look like they're enjoying Contoso travel.
They absolutely are.
And they've got some nice shoes, and the field is well plowed, at least in places. And there's a sentient Mark Bean coming into the frame, and he says, "Come with me if you want to live." Okay, maybe that's not part of the employee training.
That is not. So if you trigger again, it'll pause.
Okay.
There you go.
Video's now paused.
Okay.
Music is still going. You have some nice ambient music.
Exactly. The ambient music, the gorgeous backdrops, the structure itself that you're in, like all of this adds to the immersiveness, right? Like if you look at it, the ambient music itself is just making sure that you get to understand, you feel the surroundings that you are a part of, the objects that are in the space itself. So we took a lot of effort to make sure that we get all of these aesthetics right with the space.
Yep.
right? Because it adds to your
And so you, as the
experience.
space's maker, the maker of this particular space, you can choose what objects go in there, how they interact. Obviously, if they're video or 3D or images, or there's probably an unlimited amount of content types. Am I thinking about that right?
Absolutely. So I designed the space in probably a couple of minutes.
Okay.
That's all it took to put the space together,
Nice.
right? So, but I get to this. You have a wide variety of options to right from the structures to the backdrops to the ambient music to the types of objects that go in to the interactions that you can have on each object. So all of that is very, very customizable.
Nice. Something tells me if Bill had created this space, there would be some REO Speedwagon or some AC/DC playing in the background. Just a guess, Bill. Just a guess.
Maybe some Bob Dylan, little campfire.
Oh, that'd be nice. I could do a little Bob Dylan. So I'm thinking, for sure, lots of different content type could be laid out here. Obviously, in the concept of a new employee, there could be, watch this video. Here's a place, or here are the people you can go ask questions about. Could actually have their faces and a way to contact them. And obviously, lots of other content. I mean, I know we've pitched it as an additive component to the intranet, but I think in some scenarios, being as immersive as I see it right now, it is the environment. It is the space, or maybe if you think about it like the site that you create or the space that you create.
Absolutely.
It's a component of the intranet?
Absolutely. So in fact, let me teleport you to another space.
Okay. I'm ready.
Where you can have a completely different experience.
Do I have to tap my thing on my chest for Star Wars thing?
And for this particular demo, you can imagine that Contoso Outdoor Gear is producing this tent, and they have retailers or sellers across the country, and they want to familiarize the sellers with their particular product that they developed. And this is an easy way to put that visualization in people's hands.
Yeah.
So you can imagine taking that tent to your dealers, to your resellers. They're able to view it in 3D, learn a lot about the product, and then when customers come into the store, they have a unique and complete view of the actual product itself, not just the flat 2-dimensional picture that they have to try to learn from. So it's a really good opportunity to kind of immerse yourself beyond just reading and hearing.
Cool. So we're back in the city. Vidya, beam me up.
So next space we're going to see is, imagine another company, Contoso Travels.
Okay.
Right. So today, if you want to sell, a new set of tours or a new set of destinations, what do you do? So today, if you have to, go and check out, hey, I want to plan my next travel destination to, city A, B, and C. What do? You probably just go check out some videos or read something about it or look at, boring 2D pictures.
Yeah, boring.
But what if you could actually go visit the destination in 360 degrees?
Oh, yeah.
And then get a feel of how your next vacation is going.
Okay, enough. Where are we going?
Where are we going? Okay, so I'm going to launch you into...
Ooh.
So as you can see, a couple of things over here that I want to call out. This structure of the space is completely different than the structure of the previous space.
Yeah, very.
The backdrop of this is completely different.
And we're either in Utah or we're in Ayers Rock, or at least like Ayers Rock after it was blasted by some meteorite.
So what you're seeing here are 360 images and videos. So you see the little play button, those are all videos. If you don't see a play button, those are all images. Okay. So select one. And there is no ambient sound in this space because each of these videos and images itself may have some sound.
Okay. And what I'm seeing, there's 5 what looks like large podiums with spheres on them. Is that a common construct that we offer, or just what the designer of this space created?
So the spheres for denoting 360 assets is pretty common in the mixed reality experience. Yeah. So we just added podiums. I mean, that's optional. You can have floating spheres or you can have spheres rested on podiums. Okay. It's just more aesthetically balanced if you look at the space. Right, so you're right now
I'm standing on a dock. I feel like if I walked over to physically where Bill is, I would probably step on
my foot,
either a starfish or a sea urchin, which I don't want to step on. This is a waterfront destination, and certainly learning about it. I'm not looking at a brochure like you said. I can hear the sounds. I can see people in the water, boats in the water.
Exactly.
And I can imagine myself. Now, if I were to walk over towards the pier, it would be as if I'm walking to the end of the pier?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. Although you may be constrained by the physical dimensions of this room. So what you're seeing is a transport control.
Oh, okay.
Right? So because it's a video, just like how you would expect from any 2D video, you can play.
Skip ahead, sure.
Exactly.
I got you.
You can play, pause, skip ahead, and there's a back button.
Yeah.
So if it starts raining,
you can just run away.
That's right. I love it.
Then there's a couple of other videos if you want to check out.
I want to check out the one that's in the forest just because I love walking in the forest. And I'm also was just curious, what ambient sounds do you have here? Any birds going to chirp?
Yep.
All right, I'm looking to see if I can see any robins or crows or any peregrine falcons. This is beautiful. I love, I've thought when people use these for games, I get the sense of how the game is programmed. And obviously 360 videos, a lot of our friends have created those, and I've seen them through other mechanisms like on Facebook and whatnot. But I've never actually seen what is a static 3D 360-degree image. Mm-hmm. It's really cool.
The best part of these is, with the number of devices that let you capture 360 videos and images, that's rapidly growing in the market. Like you can get a pretty good device for like less than $100 now.
So I know we're going to talk about the tech, but really all of this is we're doing some smarts of what you can do and put into SharePoint. But the variety of things that you can use to capture the images, the videos, the sounds, obviously what I'm having on my head, the heads-up display, the controllers, it's pretty off-the-shelf stuff, right?
Absolutely. We didn't do anything fancy. We just captured these videos and images just using any 360 capture device and just put them into a SharePoint library and pull them into a space.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think it's time to undon the headset, return to being human again. But if you do want to come with me, if you want to live, that's fine. Thank you very much for sharing and showing. Truly now I can say that I've done it. And I won't try to get away with, it's my first time. But I can't wait to see what you guys actually present, for people to come to the SharePoint conference and try it out. I know you guys have got some good plans there. But I think if we just really start with what is SharePoint Spaces? Let's start with the very basic definition, and then we're going to get pretty deep into everything we want to talk about.
So SharePoint Spaces, in the simplest terms, is an innovative way to create immersive and engaging mixed reality experiences on any device by anyone, right? Because we started incubating this effort over 2 years ago, and it's been a fascinating journey to see how this has evolved from the very first prototype that we came up with to what we have in the product today, right? So our inspiration was pretty straightforward. We wanted to see what are the opportunities that we have as technology emerges, and what are the problems that needed to be solved while staying true to who we are as SharePoint. Because if you look at our history as SharePoint, that's what we've always done. We have taken the toughest problems that needed to be solved, all while staying true to who we are as SharePoint, be it with SharePoint Server or with SharePoint Online or the latest innovations around infusing AI into content collaboration. Right? So when we started evaluating the mixed reality landscape, one of the things that popped out was the whole idea of content creation is really hard. Because today, if you have to create something that is truly immersive, truly engaging, and most importantly, functional, and does not make you dizzy or want to throw up inside the headset, you have to be skilled in a game engine like Unity or Unreal. You need to understand how to code using WebVR, which is not accessible by everyone. Right? That's the problem. And that is the reason why there is not so much content out there, even though this technology has been around for some time now. Right? So what we wanted to do was make this experience super simple and accessible by everyone while staying true to who we are at SharePoint. And that's exactly what we started doing and exploring. And eventually, you saw, we put together Spaces in under 3 minutes. And anybody can do this. That's the best part. You don't need to understand the physics that go behind the scenes. You can if you want to. We give you more options to play around. But if you are an IW, you just want to put together an immersive space and story tell. You don't need to understand anything that go behind the scenes, such as ambient sounds or lighting or spatial geometry or occlusions. You don't need to understand anything.
This essentially is virtual reality for everyone, obviously with a big slant on business. But if we think about the business or the businesses that we're going to market to and obviously make sense of when and how they're going to use this, what are, Bill, maybe some of the scenarios, use cases that either we're thinking about or in these early stages, customers are actually wanting and trying?
I think you saw a couple of them as Vidya demonstrated to you just a moment ago. And of those, the ones that really pop are the training scenarios, really the educating users. And you can imagine a first-line worker who needs the ability to engage with a particular product in a way that two dimensions don't allow. So you can take an object, a model, a video. You can simply upload it to SharePoint just as you would any other type of file. You can create a space just as easily as you can create a page in SharePoint today. And you can just drag those elements onto the page, and you can enable those first-line workers to immerse themselves with that training model, for example. So you can imagine they need to review something as complex as a rig or a platform that may be based somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico or out in the ocean somewhere. So it's really difficult to enable people to kind of truly visualize all of the different structure of this particular rig. But by taking that model and enabling people to put on a headset, or even absent a headset, to be able to manipulate it and rotate it, and kind of take the effects of pitch and yaw and really move the thing around and immerse themselves in it. That's a great example of just being able to train people without having to expose them to the real world environment. And some of those environments may come with risk. So this mitigates some of that risk. And then there's the virtual tour scenario, and you see how powerful a virtual tour is. You can look at all of the images of a beautiful place, but as soon as you step into it and you can actually, much as you did, walk around the beach and turn around and look at the sky and look down at the ground, it really changes the game as far as delivering your message goes, because it enables the individual, the viewer, to exercise a different sense beyond what they have, previously with content.
So you both have obviously discovered and watched people who are either new to it like me today, or people who maybe are gamers and have used the technology before, maybe not spaces, but virtual reality. What's the difference of how people pick it up? I think I did okay. I looked around, I discovered some things, but I'm sure if somebody walks in and they know the gaming side of VR, what's the element of, that balance of, somebody who's new to it to somebody who's done it before, and how we build for those first run experiences?
That's a great question. So a couple of things here, right? So if we have, when we demo it to people who have not experienced VR or mixed reality before, their first expression is of awe and happiness and, surprise and delight. It almost feels like it brings out the kid in them, right? So
we all have a kid buried deep down in our SharePoint heart.
And we feel it every time you interact with any software that is truly delightful to use. You can sense that satisfaction and that happiness, right? So a lot of times when we demo, they do feel, oh, this is fantastic. I didn't know you could do this in under 2 minutes, in under 5 minutes, right? So there's always that. And when we demo them how easy it is to build this, because usually what we do is we show them a space like how we did to you today, and then we tell them, okay, how long do you think that took to build? And usually they are like couple of hours. Then we say, no, not quite. And then we show them how easy it is to put together these pieces, and then they're truly blown away.
I think a great scenario, much to that extent, is even for our own unique purposes. Last year, we introduced Spaces effectively to the world at the SharePoint conference and enabled people to actually put on a headset and experience it, because you really don't see the power until you're able to actually experience it. It's difficult to express in words, its capabilities, but once you are able to actually, experience the look, the feel, that's when you really start to see the value that comes along with Spaces. But one thing that we did is when we designed the stage, the keynote room, we used 360-degree images and video.
Oh,
and
very cool.
The reason that was so powerful is that in the past, you would have a static photograph of the stage, a static photograph maybe 20 degrees to your left, 20 degrees to your right, and you would repeat that several times.
I'm imagining Jeff Teeper went, bigger. I want it bigger.
Yeah, and it's so hard to present to people because you show them image one where it cuts off, 20 feet shorter than what you're intending to show. But by having that 360-degree image, you can actually turn and see how the room flows together. So you're not trying to stitch something together to be able to visualize it. So it enables you to visualize it in its true sense, how it was meant to be visualized.
So you used it to prep for SPC, and obviously the big disclosure was SharePoint Conference. What's the journey been like since then? We disclosed a ton, right? But probably just the tip of the iceberg as far as where you took it from there, what customers were thinking and asking questions. What's the journey been like since SharePoint
launching.
Conference 2018 till now, which is February 2019?
It has been very overwhelming in the most positive sense, because I think the whole team, we were just blown away by the support we received from the SharePoint community and the broader MR community, I would say. Like we heard a lot of feedback, positive feedback from folks who are not necessarily SharePoint customers, but they appreciate, virtual and mixed reality technology. So it's been, fantastic. And when we announced at SPCNA, we also started taking applications for private preview, right? Because through this year, what we want to do is we want to work really closely with, customers to understand what type of scenarios do they want to build, right? Is this actually meeting their requirements? Because we did do a lot of customer research and concept value testing right from day one. Like that's something I think the whole team is very proud of because mixed reality, if you look at it, it's a very niche technology. Although it's been around for several decades now, but it has not yet hit mainstream, especially in the enterprise segment. There's more momentum in the consumer segment, I would say, than enterprise at this point in time. So it's very hard to have precedence. And we hit a lot of roadblocks when we are on a day in, day out basis, right? Do we position this, even the smallest of things? While designing a text web part, we hit issues that we don't have anything else to compare with. So we use customer research and a lot of concept value testing to kind of, validate if our hypothesis is correct, right? Mm-hmm. So what we want to do through this year is to work with some of our, customers and understand how they're using it, what kind of assets are they bringing into the space, how is it helping them, what are the gaps, etc. And we were truly blown away. Like Bill and I think, sat and we had a meeting where we were parsing through all the customer responses and the applications, and we were so blown away by all the things that they had to say and all the, honestly speaking, the creative use cases they came up with. Mm-hmm. Like it's been a fantastic learning for us just reading through their applications.
I think everything that you're doing, everything that customers are saying really is setting the precedence that, hey, it's just another content type. And by the way, it's a wonderful content type. I know it's way more than that, but it is something that we're seeing. People are shooting 360 video. They are wanting to have more immersive experiences, the ability to be somewhere but not have to go there or get everybody there, cost savings and all that. But obviously, it sounds like the customers didn't disappoint with interest.
No, not at all.
And coming up with their own use cases, right?
Looking at the customer responses, as Vidya mentioned, I was just overwhelmed to see the creativity. I mean, coming from a position of having 4 to 5 identifiable use case scenarios to just looking at potentially hundreds, if not thousands of different ways people envision using virtual reality from a content collaboration perspective. And to see, I would expect to see thousands of suggestions across just MR, VR. But to see thousands of suggestions just limited to content collaboration was amazing.
Wow. Cool.
I got so excited about it.
I was just going to say, you need a real virtual space so you don't physically hit anything, especially Vidya's nose. She's prone to getting hit in the nose. So,
and the other thing that I also want to say is, so we are currently working with a set of customers, right? And we see them using spaces, bringing in their assets on a day in, day out basis. And what we have also noticed is there's a lot of scenarios that they help us envision, which might not be core to just spaces, but there are other partner teams at Microsoft that are doing the exact thing that they are envisioning. So it's been pretty fascinating to see how the dots are connecting. But because if you look at it as Microsoft, we are all in this mixed reality journey together.
But just real quick, once you take off the SharePoint Spaces headset and you look around the rest of Microsoft, you're not alone. There's a lot of technology. Is there a lot of integration and technology and info sharing across the company?
There are a lot of efforts, a lot of apps, throughout the spectrum, I would say. Like we are kind of in the more VR end of the spectrum, but there are also other apps that are mostly in the augmented reality side of the spectrum. But the learnings are all the same. The types of problems we face are all the same. Hey, if a customer is bringing in a million polycount asset, how does the technology deal with it? That's the same problem that all of us have to go through, right? So those learnings have all been exactly the same. And also, like I mentioned before, the scenarios, because from a customer's perspective, they don't necessarily care about app A versus app B. For them, hey, this is the scenario that I want to achieve. Can your app do it? But sometimes we see that, oh, yes, but there's an overlap with this other piece of, service that somebody else is working on. So how can we connect these two to make sure that we help you achieve your goal, right? So all of that, I think, has been really good. And also, even in the broader community, the MR community is still pretty small because the technology is not pervasive everywhere yet. Mm-hmm. So I think everybody is still very open and very eager to learn, to share. So it's been a fun journey so far.
I think where a lot of our listeners love to go is the tech. What is this actually built on? If you think about what is a space, obviously your tech that you're building to support it, but maybe walk us through a little bit about the technical aspects of SharePoint Spaces.
Sure. So Spaces is built on WebGL, specifically WebVR, which is just an open standard. So that is the reason you can create and consume a space on any device that is capable of rendering a browser. Right? So that could be your PC, your Mac, or even your Chromebook, right? So from a framework perspective, we use Babylon.js, which is, again, a real-time open source 3D engine.
It's also, I think, a really nice science fiction television show. Fits in perfectly. Babylon.
Fits in perfectly. So we did explore other JavaScript frameworks when we were getting started, but we absolutely love Babylon.js because it is simple, it is powerful, and most importantly, it supports enterprise-grade development, which is of super high importance to us as SharePoint, because we want to make sure that at the end of the day, the quality matches your enterprise, level expectations, right?
So with your MCM hat on, your Microsoft Certified Master hat on, knowing the deep technical aspects of SharePoint from its infancy to where it is at now, and then you add in Spaces, what does that mean for the overall architecture of the product from your perspective?
I don't think Spaces introduces any kind of fundamental, architectural changes. As I mentioned earlier, it's a canvas, and as such, it doesn't necessarily change, how we think about SharePoint architecture. It doesn't even really necessarily change how we think about SharePoint scale, because the objects that people are going to use within the context of a space already exist, or they're going to be bringing them with. So, regardless of how that asset, is finally formalized, whether it's a PNG, versus some other format, it's kind of irrespective to SharePoint itself. You're storing a file in SharePoint, and you want to be able to use that file to its full potential. And I think that was kind of one of the big use cases for Spaces in the first place, which is customers are already creating these assets. They're already storing them in SharePoint. Why not enable them to use these assets to their full potential? So, absent Spaces, it'd be like giving people uploading PowerPoint presentations, but nobody has access to PowerPoint. So you can't really leverage it to its full potential. But we're enabling people to take those existing assets, leverage them to their full potential, and really utilize them in the manner they were designed to be utilized. And if you asked somebody today, do you have 3D models? And they said, yes. Then you can ask them, how do your employees view them? And they would just look around and start asking people in their organization, how do we view these? And I think what we've been able to do is make it so simple that it becomes more and more compelling. There's no reason not to create Spaces is a better way to put it.
So I think I want to call out one more thing, which is a lot of times I get asked, so is this all brand new tech? Because people, sometimes they have not heard of Babylon.js or WebVR in SharePoint specifically, right? So they ask me, well, is this all new thing? Does it mean I have to learn everything from scratch to use a space? And the answer to that is a big no, because Spaces leverages a lot of existing SharePoint tech from a user experience perspective as well as from a framework perspective, right? So from a UX perspective, we had a very conscious goal. The entire team, when we started designing this, we had a conscious goal that, hey, we want to make sure that we're not reinventing anything that doesn't need to be reinvented, right? If there are concepts that we can borrow from existing SharePoint, we are going to do that, right? So if you look at the user experience of creating a space, right from the entry point to the selection of templates, to the canvas, to how you add a web part, to how you publish a space, it's all very familiar. And anybody who has ever created a modern page will right away be able to understand. You don't even need a how-to guide. You don't even need the Ubi experience. You just understand if you just fiddle with it for a couple of seconds, because it's all borrowed concepts. And this has worked extremely well, because a lot of times when we go through this first run experience, people are surprised that, oh, this is just like creating a page, but instead of a 2D page, I'm getting a 3D space. How fantastic is that? The other fundamental constructs like accessing, permissioning, or discovery, search experiences, how space activity will show up in SharePoint Home and site activity feed, all of that is, again, just it behaves the same way that you expect it to behave, right? And also from a framework perspective, Spaces is built on SharePoint framework, SPFX. So all the data binding is exactly the same between the 2D web parts and the MR web parts. So, the million-plus developer community who are all eager to start building MR-capable web parts can very soon do that, because it's all the same fundamental constructs.
Yeah, we've been down the road of, here's a new toolkit. versus here's a new tool for your existing toolkit.
Exactly. So we do borrow as much as we have innovated in things where there needs to be a change, there needs to be a fork between 2D and what you would expect from a 3D experience. We did make a conscious effort to make sure that we kept the things that doesn't need to be changed so that, it's easier for the user to come with us on this journey.
So, Bill, do I need a headset to view a SharePoint space?
So the answer is twofold. Do I need a headset? The easy answer to that question is no, you don't need a headset. You can experience your 360-degree images. You can look at your models, and you can use keyboard and mouse to manipulate those. So if you want to perform some of the same actions that you performed with the headset, you can do it directly in the browser. So you can visit your SharePoint space that you created in the browser, and you can manipulate that with mouse and keyboard. It's as simple as that. If it's touch-enabled, you can also just put your finger on your screen and rotate around these objects. If you want the full immersive experience, the best possible experience, then a headset will definitely be beneficial because that's, these objects that you're designing, if you're designing them for MR, you definitely want to use a headset. But, at the end of the day, is a headset required? The easy answer to that is no. If you want the best possible experience, definitely a headset. And for us, fortunately, I think from a headset perspective, because we have lowered the barrier to entry through the multitude of devices that we support. And Vidya could probably talk about the supported headsets in more detail as well.
So a little bit about that. So we currently support all the tethered headsets in the market. So be it your Oculus Rift or your HTC Vive or the wide array of Windows mixed reality headsets, right? So, and some of these are, as cheap as $300. So they're not in the thousands range, I would say. And also the industry is evolving, right? Because you see more and more devices being announced every single year. And as we see those, we are definitely, evaluating what does it mean for spaces to, be performant on those, because the broader hardware market is still evolving to a large extent. The processing power, the resolution, all of these have a deep effect on the end user experience itself. So that is the reason we are very cognizant of the array of devices that we support.
But you are looking at building SharePoint spaces, if I can kind of create a new acronym, to be a BYOH approach, bring your own headset, or be provided a headset and not have that to be a limited set because there's so many out there. And I bet we'll even start to enter the era where people already have something.
Yes.
We know we have the SharePoint conference. Vidya, anything you can tease out or at least milestone markers of what we can expect for SharePoint spaces at the SharePoint conference?
The team is working on some fantastic new features. It'll truly blow away, your expectations, I would say, because one thing that I do want to call out is the Spaces team is super small and we run like a startup. We move fast and it is filled with crazy, passionate people. So we have been right from environments to the authoring canvas improvements itself or to content interactivity, the types of content we support, to the infrastructure and integrations, like all over the spectrum. We've been doing a lot of fantastic work and there's a lot of innovative features that you would expect. Some of them might be super simple, but when you actually look at it and experience it in the headset, you would be taken aback and you would be like, oh wow, I never thought I could do this.
I just want to capture all the audio of people going, ooh,
so
and ow, it's my nose.
Yeah, so at the SharePoint conference, the whole team will be there. Vidya and I. No. Yeah. But at the SharePoint conference, we're going to have our team there. We're going to have some exciting new announcements, and better yet, we're going to have a product pavilion on the expo hall floor to where you can come experience all those exciting announcements for yourself. And again, as we said earlier, really seeing is believing when it comes to spaces.
They're going to be able to try it out, ask questions, and probably share a ton more feedback back to you both.
Absolutely. And we are also actively expanding our private preview customer base. Mm-hmm. So we're still taking applications. If you're interested, definitely sign up because we are actively expanding our private preview customer base as we speak.
Excellent.
Explore SharePointspaces.com. Scroll all the way to the bottom, and you can register for the private preview.
Okay, so that was kind of my last question to Bill, and then I've got a kind of a not SharePoint Spaces question. We've had Bill on the show before. We might have him again. But
right.
Vidya,
Bill's omnipresent.
We'll see. He usually does pretty well. But Vidya, one of the things I'd love to hear about is your involvement beyond SharePoint in the tech industry, specifically with the Grace Hopper Foundation and other diversity inclusion efforts.
Absolutely. And thanks for asking that, because I think the more we speak about D&I, the better it is for the community, I would say, for the tech industry too. So I do a lot of work on some D&I initiatives, both within Microsoft as well as in the broader tech community. My most notable work is with the Grace Hopper Conference, which is the largest conference for women in computing. It started as a conference for just a couple hundred women to this year we're expecting over 22,000 women.
22,000?
22,000.
Oh,
and I am also incredibly thrilled because I am the general chair for the conference this year. So
no pressure.
No pressure at all. So
we can actually create a SharePoint space with 22,000 faces looking at you, just so you can practice.
I do plan on taking my 360 camera to the conference this year to capture all the energy from the conference. So it's been a fantastic journey to work with a very, very diverse set of technologists, not only from industry, but also from academia, from nonprofits, from governments, right, to shape this conference, because GHC is solely run by a set of volunteers. Last year, we had about 2,000 volunteers, end to end. And this year, we are anticipating more because we're going to have more attendees. So it's just been fascinating to work with all these amazing women. And as a general chair, you lead the program. Like I have another co-chair who's a professor at USC. She's a robotics professor. Nice. So it's been fascinating to introduce new tracks. And you can expect one of the new tracks that we introduced this year is mixed reality.
Very nice.
So I was jazzed up about that because I think working in the space, it was very obvious to me that there is a lot of fantastic work happening across the industry and which needed to be shared with this audience too. So we introduced mixed reality, virtual and augmented reality as one of the core tracks this year. And recruiting people for, all the different activities that need to happen, reviewing these proposals and putting together a conference program that is going to not only excite, but rather inspire. Like a lot of women come to GHC to get inspired, to share their stories and to listen and learn from others. So it's just been fantastic. And, I would definitely encourage the folks from the SharePoint community too to, attend the conference, volunteer. We're still taking applications for anybody who's interested in being a reviewer or, helping with other types of activities as well.
I think we can help get the word out. Our friend over here, Mr. Baer, is actually designing a diversity and inclusion track and a lot of other offerings for the SharePoint conference.
Yep.
Yes, and I was so excited because last year, I think, was the first time we had the D&I track at SPCNA.
It was.
And it was fabulous. I spoke at a couple of sessions last year, but it was great being on a panel and, just mind melding with other SharePoint women and kind of, spreading the word. So thanks for doing that, Bill.
I will thank you both because I know you're both very well-rounded individuals for carving out a little bit of that time to come and talk about spaces, obviously talk about the Grace Hopper initiative and the conference and everything that you guys both do with D&I. I think it's great to support the community in that way, in all the ways you do. Before we leave, Vidya, if people want to find out a little bit more about you, where do they go and where do you most often let people know about things?
I am very active on Twitter and LinkedIn. My handle is VID Srinivasan. My portfolio is at vidyasrinivasan.info and it has all the links to all things social. I do post about food on Instagram, but you probably don't want to learn more about
it's almost
that.
Lunchtime. I think we can get there. Bill?
Mine's pretty easy. It's wbaer.net, and that just is the landing page to take you to all the various places that I either blog, some less interesting than others. Sometimes I'd like to talk about random things. I spent a couple of hours last week trying to figure out why I like Miracle Whip more than mayonnaise.
So thank you both. Thank you for coming into the studio today to share everything that you know. I hope you'll stick around to give us one of your quick FAQs that you're hearing recently. But stick around to the end of the show. But again, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Vidya.
In every episode, we like to offer our listeners answers to some of the most frequently asked questions about SharePoint, Office 365, and all things Microsoft. Today, we're going to be asking Vidya and Bill what are their most frequently asked questions. Vidya, let's start with you. What is your most frequently asked question? And of course, with your subject matter expert brain on, what is the answer that you give?
My most frequently asked question about spaces is, when can I start building a space? when is it going to be available in the service? And the answer to that, I would say, is if you want to get access ASAP, sign up for private preview. You will be included in the program in the months to come. If not, you'll stay tuned to hear more announcements on when we go to
So I just saw you turn one of those big grains of sand. It's coming soon. It's soon-ish. But definitely we'll put a link so people can go and sign up for the preview. Try it as soon as they want. Yep. Bill, what's your most frequently asked question?
My most frequently asked question is not around spaces. It's largely around the new initiative I took up, which is Microsoft Search. The question becomes is, how do I get started with Microsoft Search? The easiest way to do that is enable it. So through Microsoft 365 administration, we have a Microsoft Search node. You can go in there, you can enable Microsoft Search, and then you can start using our various search entry points across Word, Excel, PowerPoint, SharePoint Home, and mobile, SharePoint sites, communication sites, and hub sites included, as well as through the Windows search box. So one coherent search experience, regardless of the entry point that you come into. But step one is just enable it.
Turn it on. Try it out. Let us know what you think. Great questions from both of you. The one that I'm getting recently is tied to a lot of what we've been announcing around OneDrive. A lot of people say that they saw OneDrive supports file types of all types from a view perspective. When you go into a folder and you see all the nice rich previews, or if you view it in a browser, you get a nice rich representation of the document in its full fidelity. And so if people are asking, does this apply to SharePoint? My answer is absolutely yes. SharePoint is actually the underpinning platform for OneDrive. So really, when you see announcements for OneDrive or SharePoint in the files department, a lot of it accrues to both of those offerings. They're just endpoints to where you get the value of what's really our content service for all of Office 365. So you saw us announce a lot of initial file viewers so that you could see a rich preview, a rich thumbnail. And certainly the team is now at 300 plus file viewer content types. So you get a really great indication of things like 3D images, DICOM images, obviously images and movies, anything with Office documents. You see a really rich preview that just tells you what's in this document. So yes to that answer. What you heard us talk about with OneDrive file type viewers absolutely accrues to SharePoint as well. So keep in mind, anytime you see a OneDrive announcement specific to file types and the views that you get with all the supported file type viewers, that it absolutely applies to SharePoint. And I'll take it even a little bit further. It applies to Microsoft Teams and Outlook as well, as we're trying to move a consistent files experience throughout Office 365. A lot of that value in terms of file viewers and that rich fidelity of thumbnails applies to when you're in OneDrive, when you're in a SharePoint document library, when you're looking at the Files tab in Microsoft Teams, and also when you're in Outlook if you're looking at your group files. It's all a consistent experience, one that we want to promote and absolutely applies everywhere. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Vidya, for your great FAQs. We hope that you always learn from our subject matter experts as they share what's top of mind of the questions that they get. And of course, if you have any specific questions that you want to ask us, please send to our email, theinterzone@microsoft.com, or you can always reach us on Twitter via SharePoint, mcashman, or cmcnulty2000. Ask your questions anytime. We'd love to answer them on the show. There are always a lot of opportunities to plug in locally, or if you're willing to travel, and I think all of these events are always worth traveling for, find a place to plug in to get the learning that you need, and certainly to network and to plug into the community. The SharePoint and Office 365 tech communities are some of the most offering and wonderful communities to plug into, and we want to always make sure that you have the visibility and the awareness of what are the upcoming events, some of the best ones to plug into. First up, SharePoint Saturdays. These are an excellent opportunity for users and IT to learn from and engage with their local community. These are usually just down the street or certainly a little bit of a drive to get to. Best part is they're free, but don't let that fool you. These are real events that have a lot of great speakers that fly in from all over the place to give you the content that you need and also to be there to answer all of your questions. On March 9th, there's an event in Hyderabad, India. And they have their Twitter handle, if you want to follow it, SPS Hyderabad, and they go by the hashtag SPS Hyderabad. There's a lot of information when you go to any of the SharePoint Saturday events, and if you follow their hashtag or follow their Twitter handle, you'll find out all the particulars of the event, especially on the day of if you want to stay plugged in. And then skip ahead a little bit to the end of March. March 30th, there's 2 events. One in Chevy Chase, Maryland. This is also known as SPS Saturday DC or hashtag SPSDC. And there's another event in Omaha, Nebraska at SPS Omaha or hashtag SPS Omaha 2019. Visit spsevents.org to find about all the upcoming SharePoint Saturdays near you. Plan for that little trip down the street to fill up your brain with a lot of great training, free training with a lot of great experts that are visiting from all over the place. Now, for all of you developers, Microsoft Build 2019 is just around the corner, and they've actually now got a date to it, May 6th through the 8th in Seattle, Washington. You definitely want to stay tuned for what they're pumping out through their website. Registration is already open. You can start to see all of the sessions that they have planned, all of the people that will be attending in terms of who you would expect to go ask your burning developer questions. And there certainly will be SharePoint expertise on hand to talk about the SharePoint framework in the context of Office 365 and, of course, Power Apps, Flow, all the things that you'd want to plug into. But think of it truly as a developers conference that will go deep into what a developer needs to know to build in the modern development patterns and practices stack of today. Also coming up, of course, is this year's biggest SharePoint event, one that you will consistently hear from us because we want to make sure you have all the insights of the SharePoint Conference North America. This is SPC 19, and that's going to be May 21st to the 23rd. We're back at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. This is co-produced by Microsoft and the conference team, the SharePoint conference team. Not only are we back, but we're back with listening to a lot of feedback from the previous year. We're bringing 150 speakers with about 200 plus sessions. We've got workshops on day 1 and 2 before the event and after the event. And we have 100 plus exhibitors that are coming to fill the expo hall with all of the great solutions that you can build on top of SharePoint, Office 365, and the Azure Power Stack. We'll have news and announcements, of course, from Jeff Teeper and team in his executive keynote. You can register today. Registration is open at sharepointconference.com. And if you remember from a previous episode, we've got a lot of great discount codes based on your favorite speakers. We'll make sure to put that link in the show notes again as well. Later in March, just after the SharePoint conference, is the AIM conference. This is in San Diego from March 26th to the 28th. If you love content services, if you've always loved enterprise content management, and if you like my co-host, who, absent today, will definitely be present at the AIM conference, attend. You can't miss some nice sunny weather to learn all about content services and the way that people are protecting their records and managing them in the most modern of ways. Now skipping to April 29th through May 3rd is SharePoint Fest Washington, D.C. And as you can imagine, this event will have a little bit of a slant towards information for our government agencies, people who want to maybe use some of the Office 365 offerings specific for government. We call that the GCC offering. SharePoint Fest always has a great reputation of being very targeted of where it is, and of course in the region of Washington, D.C., think of that as a great offering for everybody local around the D.C. area. Specific to having Vidya on the episode today, we want to absolutely highlight the Grace Hopper celebration. This is the world's largest gathering of women technologists. Follow the hashtag GHC19, and this is in October 2nd through the 4th in Orlando, Florida. We'll make sure to put their Twitter handle and the links for where you can go to register and find out more in the show notes. But know that our friend Vidya will be there, and if you want to meet Vidya, hear what she has to say, and of course be in this realm of all of the great women in technology, Grace Hopper Celebration is the place to be. AnitaB.org produces the Grace Hopper celebration in partnership with ACM, the Association for Computing Machinery. That's a lot of great places to plug in. I hope to see you on some of those in person. I'll certainly be following them online with all of the hashtags and Twitter handles to see how the community is plugging in, any open questions that people have, and certainly love to just always watch the energy, even online, always great in person as well. Don't miss these events. A big thank you to our guests today, Vidya Srinivasan and Bill Baer. Definitely want to check out what they're saying out on the interwebs, and if you get a chance to meet them in person, tell them Mark said hi. Check out our show page for links to all of what we discussed today and more. Go to aka.ms/theintrozone. We love hearing from listeners. Do please send us your questions and feedback for us or the SharePoint team, and we'll pass it along to make sure to get that question answered. You can reach us via email at theinterzone@microsoft.com or via Twitter at SharePoint, @mcashman, and @cmcnulty2000. Remember to tell all your friends about the show. We need your help getting the word out. Don't be shy. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and thanks so much for listening. I'm one of your hosts, Mark Cashman. My accomplice, Chris McNulty, will be back on our next episode. This has been The Interzone, a show about the next 3D, 360-degree dimension of the SharePoint intelligent intranet. But wait, there's one more relevant thing. We always want to provide you with good insight in and beyond the Interzone. If you're interested in hearing more about mixed reality, tune in to another great Microsoft podcast, Behind the Tech, with Kevin Scott, Microsoft's very own Chief Technology Officer. This month, he talks with Dio Gonzalez, Principal Software Architect at Microsoft Research, as well as diversity advocate and speaker. Dio will also be at this year's Grace Hopper celebration. Look for this latest episode, Mixed Reality is Becoming Part of Your Day-to-Day Life, and more. You can find Behind the Tech with Kevin Scott wherever you get your podcasts.